Thank you for joining me, James. It's
No
a pleasure to have
problem.
you here at Riva Delgado on this very fine evening indeed. First things first, would you care for a cup of tea?
Absolutely. I need it.
You need it.
I need it.
How long have you been travelling for?
All told, I think probably about 18 and a half hours.
And no sleep, right?
And very little sleep.
Yes. Well, you look good on it.
I try. I had a little bit of time to find a clean shirt and a shower before coming here.
That's good to know. So let's start off at the beginning. How did you get into? I ask everyone this because I think it's sort of very different stories come to light. But how did you get into analytical science?
Well, it sort of found me, I guess. I was doing my undergrad work in environmental chemistry in a co-op program. So I'd go to school for a few months, and then I'd work for a few months, and then go back to school for another semester, and then go back to work, so on and so forth. And I kept getting analytical jobs. Right. And I was good at it. And
why do you think that is?
I don't know. I was also very much interested in synthetic work and stuff like that in my undergrad, and it all worked beautifully for me on paper, and I tried it in the lab and made lots of brown goo. So then I decided that was the end of my career as a synthetic chemist, and I'd stick with analytical because it liked me back.
Right. Well, that's good. That's a good start.
From then, decided I wanted to go to grad school, and looked around at where I could go, and discovered I could stay where I was and try out this new up-and-coming technique called two-dimensional GC and see what happens.
Right. So I guess that's taken you to your current focus, which is, could you tell me a little bit more about what you're doing right now?
What I'm doing right now. So right now my group has, I guess, three sort of sides to it. And it's all centered around gas chromatography, multidimensional gas chromatography, and stuff like that. So one part of the group is working on applications.
For which,
and we
any
have,
particular industry or?
We have some applications we've been working on for trace contaminants in petroleum samples.
Oh, okay.
Alkyl phosphates in petroleum. And then we also have another group that's working on applications to metabolomics and metabolomic type problems. Then I have another chunk of my group that's working on studying the thermodynamics of gas chromatography.
Okay.
The idea there being that if we can understand the thermodynamics that govern the separation, we should be able to predict the separations very, very accurately. Right. And in the world of two-dimensional GC, if we can predict what happens in one column, it's no more difficult to predict what happens in the second column. Right. So it lends itself to doing predictions for GC very, very easily, or relatively easily. I say easily. My students,
you say not so
students say maybe not quite so easily.
Right.
And then I have a third part of my group that's working on chemometrics and
so you're doing the whole package, right?
Yeah,
you've
ways to
covered the
turn
whole,
data into information.
Which is the most, I wouldn't say exciting because that might upset some of your students, but which is closest to your own particular passion, would you say?
Well, I think for me, sort of the intersection between the chemometric work and the thermodynamic work, and where that's hopefully going in the next few years. Okay. I mean, ever since I started doing two-dimensional GC, you'd see the beautiful patterns of peaks that show up on the chromatograms, and these nice ordered, structured chromatograms. And once you know what one or two peaks are, you can pick out a whole bunch of other peaks in the same family and just, label them all. And I just thought that was unbelievably interesting. And if we could find a way to understand how those patterns arise and model what's going on in the separations there, we could really unlock a lot of the information that's sitting inside these data sets that we can't get at right now.
And where do you see that going in the next you said the next couple of years, next
Couple of
5
years.
years.
Well-
Where are we heading?
What I'd like to see happen is have some integrated software packages where you have the instrument control and the chromatographic data systems, much like we know today, that collect all the data and integrate everything, pick out all your peaks. But then built into that same package, you can very easily run some chemometrics on a data set in that same package. So now you've got this complex data set with thousands of peaks. You can then very easily, click a few buttons and give the computer, I don't know, half an hour or so to chew on the data, and it spits out the coordinates of the peaks that matter. Right? And you get these peaks that matter. And if you've got a time of flight mass spec or a quadrupole mass spec on the back end of your instrument, you can get a spectrum for these peaks, or spectra for these peaks, and then with those spectra, you can try to figure out what the molecules are. And I mean, the problem being that the mass spectral search libraries will lie to you more quickly and easily than, your most crooked politician, lawyer, whatever, right? They will give you an answer, and sometimes it's a good answer, but quite often it's not a good answer.
Right.
And then that's where the thermodynamic side of things can come into the picture.
Yeah.
Where using our understanding of the thermodynamics, we can go through the hit table and say, well, this is reasonable or not. Or we could maybe even, if we understand the systems well enough and we can predict the retention patterns of molecules that we haven't ever run on this system before, we could, postulate some structures for these peaks that we're interested in.
Right.
And then you can very quickly, your user can very quickly get to what are the handful of 10 or 12 peaks out of these few thousand that I actually care about, and what are they? Which is what those are the two questions they want answered,
Sure.
right?
So is there some sort of collaboration with the vendors on this side? Because obviously, if we're talking about some fairly robust software, is that part of the idea, or are you just going to forge ahead on your own?
Right now, we're just forging ahead on our own. Tomorrow, I'm talking about
This is your presentation at Riva,
my presentation tomorrow, yes. I'm talking about a database that we're almost ready to launch.
Okay.
Here at Riva, I'm going to hopefully find a handful of select individuals who can help beta test the system.
Okay.
But essentially, it will have a template and instructions. Anyone can download the template, follow the instructions to collect retention data for whatever molecules they want on whatever stationary phase they're interested in. Then upload the information back to our servers, and we do all the calculations, we check their chromatograms and stuff like that, make sure they look reasonable, and get the thermodynamic data for these new molecules.
Is the one big issue that you would like to see addressed quicker than the others? So in other words, is the one thing that you would really like to change if you could wave a
If I could wave a
magic
magic wand, what would I change? I mean, the easy answer to what I would change if I could wave a magic wand is the current software options that are out there for handling the data in a seamless manner. So we want more people to start using the technique. There are lots of people using it already, but frankly, I feel like I'm missing something, or I'm almost naked if I don't have a second column following my first column.
Yeah.
And I know there are lots of people like that out there. But to get people to start using the technique, they want to use the technique to get an answer.
Right.
And the answer they want to get, or the answer they need, is not how many peaks are there. The answer they need is, is this T sample pure or adulterated, or is it from where it says it's from or not?
Right.
Is this person sick or is this person healthy? What are the molecules that in this sample that indicate that this person is sick or healthy?
So it needs to be made...
Right. Made so that they can get an answer.
Yeah.
And they can not just...
Is there a risk that we enter the black box territory, though? This is something that comes from the hardcore...
Oh, that's one of my favorite exam questions. Except I can't use it that often unless I have a lot of native English speakers in my class, in my advanced separations class. But one of my favorite questions is, we work so hard to develop these new, better, more powerful tools.
Yeah.
Is this now contributing to the dumbing down of our analytical community?
It's an interesting question, right? So what's your
discuss.
answer? Hey,
we do run the risk of that.
Don't show your students this video.
We do run the risk of that. I mean, you see it frequently if you just step back to, say, GCMS, which is quite well established, and people have methods that are well established, and they'll run a sample, and they'll get a peak table, and they'll get all the library hits for the peak table, and they'll say, great, this is what's in my sample, without asking the question and looking at the data and saying, well, why does the same compound show up 6 times in the span of 15 minutes?
Right.
That's not going to it can't happen if you only inject once.
Right.
Or why is it that, this great huge molecule elutes before this itsy bitsy teeny tiny molecule? Again, probably not going to happen on most stationary phases that are out there, right? So they just don't actually think about the data because they don't have to.
So at what point do we, is it just, we get the software that it's infallible, or is it just continued education?
You always need to have, it's continued education. You always have to have someone who's looking over the computer's shoulder to make sure that it's doing what it's supposed to, and it's...
So we're not at Skynet days yet?
No, and we're not quite in, CSI world or anything like that, right? We're trying.
Well, I think it's getting there slowly, but there's, as we say, there's a few risks on the way.
Yeah.
Well, I think that ties up the interview nicely with a Terminator reference, and thank you so much again for your time, James. It's been a pleasure talking to you. So,
all right, thank you
very
much
for having me. Good luck with your presentation.
Thank you.
I'm sure it'll go well. You should have caught up on your sleep by then, so...
Yes. Pizza and bed.
Pizza, bed.
Yep.
No Prosecco in the middle, no?
No.
Well,
maybe a little bit, but that would be right beside bed, because I won't be able to make it from there to bed.
Fair enough. It's been a pleasure. Thank you very much. Cheers.
Thanks a lot.